Good evening. In compliance with Chapter 551 Open Meetings of the Texas Government Code, I call to order a public hearing of the Board of Trustees of the Austin Independent School District for Thursday, October 24th, 2024 at 5:35 p.m. A quorum of the board is physically present at the AISD Central Office to conduct this hearing. This hearing is streaming live on AISD TV and Apple TV. It's also being broadcast on cable channel 22 through Spectrum, Astound Broadband, and on channel 99 through AT&T Uverse. Closed captioning in English is available on these platforms for individuals who are deaf or hard of hearing. Welcome and thank you for joining us. We will now move to public testimony. Let's see, did we have any public testimony? Okay, so we didn't have anybody, so we will jump right into the presentation of our financial integrity rating. So, Mr. Segura.
Absolutely. Good evening, President Singh, members of the board. I'd like to ask Katrina Montgomery, our interim chief financial officer, to join us and take us through the presentation.
Precious.
Well, while we're waiting, I do want to acknowledge that we have some of our up close participants for this year coming on a little field trip to central office. I'm really curious to have a conversation afterwards about y'all's experience and observations, what we can do better, just kind of takeaways. Thank you for being here. Thank you for all you're doing. And again, a great resource, understanding the organization. And I'm sure there's a future trustee in y'all's cohort this year for sure. Many of y'all, you were in up close, yeah. Correct? And you were trustee Boswell as well? And
yeah, so this is your future.
Sorry. Like it or not.
I know. Minute break?
Do we need it?
Oh, it is.
Oh, is it? Okay. First time you met her?
Hello, President Singh, Vice President Foster, trustees, and Superintendent Segura. I am excited to be here today to talk about our first rating, our financial integrity rating system of Texas. So let's give an overview of the first rating. The rating system ensures that Texas public schools are held accountable for the quality of their financial management practices and that they improve these practices. The system is designed to encourage Texas public schools to better manage their financial resources, to provide the maximum allocation possible for direct instructional purposes. And finally, the 23-24 rating is based on financial data from the 22-23 school year. So some of the areas of measurement that the first rating looks at is the annual financial report, which is our audit, debt payments, terms and compliances, timely payments made to government agencies, which is like one example would be sales tax, the district's financial solvency, and various other ratios and financial measurements. So for 23-24, Austin ISD again has a superior achievement, and the district maintained an overall 94 from 2023 through 2024. So these next few slides are going to go indicator by indicator, and I'm just going to give some overviews. Slides 1 through 5, indicator 1 through 5, if we look at the fifth indicator, you can see that in 22-23 it wasn't scored, but this year we had a ceiling and we passed. Indicator 6, 7, 8, and 9, then you can see indicator 10 is not scored this year. The same thing on this slide is indicator 15 was not scored this year. And indicator number 14, it was not scored last year, but we received a 10 on this year. And then also indicator 21, it was not scored last year, but we have a pass. So one of the indicators we kind of want to really spend some time looking at is indicator 13, which looks at our district's administrative cost ratio. And this is the difference between our administrative costs versus our instructional costs. And year over year, you can see that we've been above the ratio that was given to us by TEA. The standard ratio is 0.8555. In 2020 through 2021, 21-22 and 22-23, we were above. But in 23-24, we are projecting to be below, and then 24-25 also to be below. So this is work that the district has made a concerted effort to go in and try to reduce our administration costs. This is our still indicator 13. This is us against other peer districts. You know, we like to show where we are against other peer districts. If you look at the red line, it shows where the TEA standard is, which is the 0.8555. And then you can see where we are to the far left at 0.9292. And remember, this is 22 through 23 data, so we're going to continuously see some improvement on these numbers. Other financial indicators and bond rating financial awards, we're really proud of that. We have 4 bond rating agencies who have given us their superior rating. That includes Kroll, Moody's, Fitch, and as recently as August we've talked about, we received it for S&P. Austin ISD also continues to receive other awards. We received an award from Government Finance Officers Association, which is known as GFOA, as well as ASBO, the Association for School Business Officials. So let's talk about our fund balance. So we're going to go over on this slide some of the benefits of having a sufficient fund balance. So one of the things, it helps prevent Austin ISD from borrowing funds to cover cash flow deficits. And we're going to have some slides in a minute that's going to go into that a little bit more in detail. Our tax collections are usually received in late November through February, but the majority of the tax collections come in between December and February. And cash is impacted by recapture payment, which is due in August 15. So in December, January, and February, we're getting all these tax collections. We have cash going out, but cash is still doing well. Then in March, April, May, June, we're still doing well, July. And then in August, you have the recapture payment that hits. And so that does take a considerable amount of our resources. So then you have September, October, and November. We're still trudging along. And then you have November where the cash flow gets to be pretty limited. And we're going to talk about that a lot on the next slide. Another reason to have sufficient fund balance is because our results in higher bond ratings, which will reduce the amount of interest payments we pay on interest and sinking fund. A drastic change to our fund balance could cause us to fail indicator 6 under the state's first, which we just talked about, which would automatically prevent us from scoring at Superior. And as we all know, we've been getting Superior year over year over year. It also assists in responding to unforeseen costs without interruptions in service. So a couple of things we've noted here is the Winter Storm Erie and then also the COVID pandemic. We were still able to make our obligations. So here's a cash flow analysis that we did, and we want to kind of show on this where we are as the district. So when you look at July, it's saying in July we're good with cash. That's what we kind of just talked about. In August, we make our recapture as well as our property insurance payment, and that's why you see the red is the outflow, the blue is the inflows, and then the little triangle is where we are with cash. So you can drastically see from July to August, our cash really takes a big drop. September, October, and then in November of 2023, we had $53.2 million worth of general operating cash in the bank, which accounts for approximately 21 days of spending. Then we can go to November. Tax collections start coming in December. You can see on this slide, the majority of the tax collections came in January, and it's 54% of our tax collections are collected. And then we're still doing good with cash, but it all starts all over again, right? When we make that big balloon payment in August, September, October, and then we're very tightly squeezed for cash in November. So
Katrina, before we leave that slide, I think
Yes,
it's just really important that we talk about fund balance and the use of it as a dynamic component of our budgeting process. We look at fund balance and we always say it's great to have, 76 days of operating budget, right, or capacity. And that's if it's static, right? Well, it's not static, and what you just demonstrated, and I think what we don't often talk about is the fact that between October and November, like really right now, right, we get to the point where we literally have weeks of cash on hand. And so if there's a delay in the tax proceeds, that money begins to come in really in November, December. If that gets delayed by 6 weeks, maybe it gets delayed by 2 or 3 months, which can happen, there could be significant impacts in our ability to make payroll, which requires us to go look at different solutions. And we'll cover that here in a moment. But I just really wanted to kind of hit that.
Yes,
Go ahead, Katrina.
thank you. So we reached out to our financial advisors about what would happen if we decreased our if we decreased our fund balance like to maybe 19.5 or 19%. And I'm going to read exactly what he wrote me back. Generally, if what is being considered is drawing down further on reserves than previously thought to support recurring M&O costs, this would probably be viewed negatively from a ratings perspective. And then we also talked about, let's go out and see what happened if we had to do a line of credit. We know that this could be a possibility if we don't continue to look at our cash flows and where we are as a district. And so this is from our bankers, JP Morgan. They wanted to make sure that we had a disclaimer there that this is not a quote. They do not want to be held to this amount. So we put this here in bold. So we said approximately $150 million. If we went out for that for a revolving line of credit, it would be available for a 2-year period. The setup fee would be approximately $525,000. The legal fee would be $50,000. And this is something Superintendent Segura and I talked about. We haven't even got to the fee for borrowing the money, right? And so we were going back and forth talking about if you take $80 million out at 5.15%, and then if you do that, you annualize it, then you divide it by how many months that you have the cash out. So we're talking about millions of dollars that we're spending if we end up having to borrow money to continuously float the district. All right, thank you very much. I am available for questions.
Thank you, Ms. Montgomery. Trustees, any questions? Yes.
I just want to share appreciation for the administrative cost ratio. I know we've been talking about that for a long time, but 2019, 2020 was the first time we had a 10 on that. So thank you for sharing kind of our path toward that. I know we've been moving toward that, and it'll be exciting to see that next year.
Yes.
So thank you for that.
Thank you.
I did have a question. If you can show us the slide that had the different first ratings, like I had the numbers on the left column. Yeah, there was, oops, that was too far.
It's too far?
Yeah. Okay, right here. I think, okay, maybe it was the next slide, sorry. I should have remembered which one it was. Oh, goodness. Okay, next slide. I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
Oh, yeah, number 14. I really appreciate this one. This is, the indicator description is, did the school district not have a 15% decline in the students to staff ratio over 3 years? If the student enrollment did not increase, the school district will automatically pass this indicator. Could you talk a little bit more in depth? So is a 10 a good score?
A 10 is a good score, yes.
Okay, is that the maximum score you can get?
Yes, 10 is the
Okay.
maximum score.
So we got the maximum score that relates to our enrollment. Okay.
Yes.
Because, okay, I think that's really important to clarify because, you know, Superintendent, like our enrollment, do you have a sense of, like, where we are on that? Like, are we, like, we easily got into a 10 or are we kind of on the edge? Like, I think our enrollment has stabilized this year.
Yes, well, so over the last decade, right? I mean, to go back 10 years, there's been a decline. Over the last 3 years, it's been relatively flat, less than 1% both ways. Right now, we're talking about hundreds of students, not thousands of students, one way or the other. And so I think for us, whenever we talk about, really in any analysis that you do, if you're less than the, quarter of a percent or 1/5 of a percent, you're kind of in range. And so for us, we're tracking that. We're moving towards snapshot. We're still kind of within that margin. I don't expect it'll change given all the information that we have, but it's largely been flat. I mean, it has, and I think that's a testament to the work. Certainly, we're not seeing huge shifts in thousands of students like some of our peer school districts around the state of Texas. It is something we'll continue to monitor, and I think ultimately investing in our teachers and investing in AISD will help improve that over time. And so, yeah, I think that's what you're seeing there is it's nowhere near a 15% decline over a 3-year period.
Thank you. Trustees, any other questions? Yes, Trustee Foster.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation, and it's kind of exciting and a high note to see superior rating over and over again from First, and to see what Kroll bond rating, S&P, Fitch, Moody's, what they all have to say, giving us these top ratings over and over again. It's awesome. And here we are going into a really strict budget situation. We've already cut $30 million. We're looking at how do we get 90 more over 3 years. It's this whole thing that we're going through. And one of the areas of consideration has to do with the fund balance. And it was really useful to see cash flow month to month to really have a clear understanding of why you maintain cash reserves, rainy day money or whatever you want to call it. So first, November 2023, was the outflow matched by the inflow? Like, we've just got a chart there on page 13 that, tell me about November 2023 in terms of what that really looks like in the functioning of the district.
Right, so Trustee Foster, so they're not equal. Hello, Trustee Foster. So they're not equal, but it does look pretty similar, right? That our inflows are coming in to match our outflows because $53 million is very limited money for the district for 1 month, right? And so we are expecting those tax collections to come in. It usually, sometimes, as Superintendent Segura said, it can be a delay, especially in a period like we're going through now for Prop A, the election season. So the cash flows, we want them to come in as much as possible, but that's why now we're looking at cash every single week to make sure we can get through the end of November. So it's not one for one, but we do need those tax collections to start coming in November to cover November expenses.
So the cash flow, so is fund balance implicated in this conversation in terms of our health?
It is.
So this is helpful to understand the importance of the fund balance, the funds on hand, running the household in a way where we're not getting too low at any given moment. I 100% get that. And this is a dire fiscal circumstance. And so I'm interested in when we talk about, well, you want 76 days of this, that, and the other. Well, at some point, maybe 70, maybe 50, maybe 40, and you know, how low can you go? And I guess I'm just interested in, and I think community wants to understand a fleshing out of this. What happens if our cash reserves are reduced to 19%, 19.5%? If, you know, by policy, we start to tinker lower? Two different questions, or two different sides of it. One, implications for our fiscal health. And then secondly, I would actually like a sort of philosophical consideration of the idea of 20% as this like idea that's out there, like that's what constitutes health, against the reality of what constitutes health. Anything that we put in as a metric, as an indicator, is a proxy for reality. It's not reality, right? And so sometimes there can be arguments made for why we would do things a little bit differently, even though the industry standard is this, da 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 da. So I'm really interested, and I think a lot of people want to understand ever more clearly the nuances around fund balance and a November 2023 moment, and this broad thing about our fiscal health as per somebody from New York or something.
So the fiscal health, it's impacted. If we reduce, so we're at 20%. And we're going down to $53 million. So if we continuously reduce that fund balance percentage, that makes the dollars, the true cash, what we're really looking at, it makes it smaller and smaller and smaller. So what we have to be very careful is we have to weigh what we're looking at. If we're saying we want to reduce the fund balance, I get that there's a temporary gain to do that, because in this period you're like, okay. But then you have to look all the way through. So when we get to November, we need to make sure that we can still make payroll. We have over 10,000 employees. We can't get so tight that we can't pay our bills on time, especially our employees, one. And then two, we also want to talk about, we don't want to borrow, because you're borrowing, but then you're still sending more money out. So is that going to put us in the place where we're borrowing year after year after year? I believe I've heard a trustee say there's nobody coming to save us. So I think we've all probably been in financial trouble. I've had times where I've had to ask mom or grandma, but then it slowly becomes a recurring thing that we have to do. So we want to look at the long-term implication of November, not just the momentary gain of saying what it helps us if we go down to 19 or another percentage in our fund balance. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, it does, and I think it's an ongoing conversation and a matter of public education and trustee education to really learn and understand the nuances, because it's really complicated, but we're also like on the margins right now. Like, we're living in the moment of the financial challenge. And I would say more, but it probably would be inappropriate. So I'll stop. But I will just close with a note of appreciation for your work as our interim CFO, who's like carrying the load really, really incredibly, and also the district's work over time. This is what's allowing us to keep being, and it's incredibly important, and y'all's work is vital.
Thank you.
And one thing that we're endeavoring to show as part of this analysis, and we can run different models, but you end up finding that the gain that you make by 1%, which is roughly $10 million, maybe a little bit less than that, quickly gets eaten up by an interest carry costs, any origination fees, anything that you might have to consider because of how vulnerable you are for the months of October, November, and December. And so I just caution everybody really what you're doing is you're reducing the starting point, right, by that amount. And it's only a one-time gain. It doesn't get replenished. In fact, what ends up happening is you incur more cost. And so it really is a strategy that would introduce a significant amount of risk. And for us as an organization, this would be the last place we'd want to go given that cash flow analysis. And I think it's really important that we talk about this, because we often talk about, again, our fund balance is a static, account. And we don't often talk about the fact that it gets drawn down over time. And this moment that we're in right now is a very vulnerable time for AISD. Any fluctuation in revenue in or expenses going out, a winter weather event, a pandemic, whatever it might be, could really put us in a difficult position.
Well, and in all ways that are sort of legal and allowable, I really appreciate what you just said. We have to have the conversations, fully providing the information to the public, because I think Austin chooses well over and over again, and we can have faith in that. And so providing the information, including what would happen if we did this, is valuable.
Any other comments from trustees? I just have one comment, an additional comment, which is, just trying to translate the numbers into like what this actually looks like in the district, and why I'm so appreciative that we are committed. I think the administration is committed to keeping a 20% balance. So when COVID hit, we had hundreds of bus drivers and cafeteria workers that we needed to pay, custodians. These are our families in AISD. And so, and we need to take care of them. Yeah, and I really appreciated that time, having a fund balance. If we didn't, what would those families have done? I don't know. And I worry, I know my kid's bus driver has kids in our district. What would she do? What would happen to her kids? And so I really thank the district for the stewardship, and we may not feel it right now, but to me, this is one of our values of equity, and equity means having enough money in reserve to help those that may need it the most when the unexpected happens. So really, really appreciate that. I do have a question. If the Vader passes, brings $41 million a year to the district, I know a big chunk of that would go towards the fund balance. How would this look different? I know that you said you could do different scenarios, but just would it make a big difference? Would it make let's look at that November 2023. What would, how does that help us?
It would make a difference, but remember, of the net $41 million, $20 million has already been assigned, right? So $17 million is going to teachers and staff. Another $3 million is going for LSSPs or some other positions, right? And so then that's a big chunk of it. It will impact because you'd have $20 million left that will help reduce the fund balance. So it would help.
Okay.
It would help.
And then conversely, if we don't get that $41 million, we just basically continue a similar trajectory, or what happens?
So it's improved with the Vader passing, certainly. You're not going to see a completely change in the trend line, right? Because the numbers that we're talking about, these are hundreds of millions, that not over $1 billion, kind of represented in that graph. If it doesn't pass, the opposite would be true, which is, you're going to incur the costs. And in fact, in one time, because of the $500 allocation, that would be a $5 million expense that we wouldn't have revenue to offset. So for that period, so there'd be over the course of the year, a $5 million net. Really what it comes down to is what we're willing to kind of capture via cost reductions, because this is 1 year. So you apply next year, and whatever we can't take as a reduction ends up being an impact on the deficit, draws that down, or fund balance draws that down. So then your starting point is lower. So again, it's dynamic. So over a period of time, if you don't take the cuts, if you don't find additional revenue, or you don't manage your funds correctly, you're going to begin to dip past zero, which is going to create that cost, an interest cost and origination costs.
Thank you. Helpful. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time. All right. So at this time, we're going to adjourn our public hearing. I don't think we need a short break. Are y'all okay if we just plow into the next meeting? Okay. Jacob, is that cool? We can just go into, do we have to, I'll close this and then we'll go. Okay. So Secretary Boswell, do I have a motion to adjourn this hearing?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, having a motion by Secretary Boswell and a second by Trustee Zapata to adjourn. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. The motion passes unanimously. All right, so we will adjourn this hearing at 6:05 p.m. Thank you very much.